Yeah, so basically, I grew up in the same town as our lovely host here, Kaylin, and we went to the same high school. We were on the same track team, and once we parted ways in 2018, came to Colorado School of Mines, studied petroleum engineering initially, and that's kind of what I thought of doing, and I've kind of just stuck with it. And I've also added another semester because I love education so much that now I'm doing a master's in mineral and energy economics as well. So I'll be here a total of 4.5 years. So yeah, it's been a
Sweet,
ride
man.
since 2018.
So what just brought you into like so you went into energy and
Mm-hmm.
specifically you went into like fossil fuels, big oil. What brought you there? Because I know there is most definitely a backlash, specifically amongst our generation, towards anything to do with oil.
Yeah. So I mean, I really haven't like I guess growing up, I kind of grew up in a relatively I would guess very conservative household, relatively speaking. So I was never really dissuaded from things that were traditionally like very accepted. Like I guess even going up till like 2014, like everyone wanted to be a petroleum engineer because the pay was so good. And I don't know. I never was dissuaded from it just by hearing like, oh, there's a lot of the hate towards big oil and stuff like that. I don't know. I wasn't dissuaded from it, and no one really encouraged me to go towards it. There was maybe a little bit of discouragement just because of how cyclical things are, but I don't know. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and I thought petroleum engineering was pretty cool, and I just decided to come here because I like Colorado, and there's other options if I at school I go to, Colorado School of Mines. If I didn't like petroleum engineering, decide to switch, I could just do something like something not easier, but something adjunct, might be like mechanical engineering, chemical engineering, stuff like that. So that's kind of what brought me here. I was never dissuaded, but it doesn't really
Yeah.
get to me.
No, I was very excited when you reached out to come on because like I'm trying to obviously to voice as many perspectives as possible that as long as they have some kind of legitimacy, right? And I think I've definitely been there before, but I think especially a lot of our generation just overlooks the necessity of having fossil fuel as a type of energy. Like a lot of people are like, why are we not just all in electric cars? Like, okay, why are you still pumping up your Nissan? Like, what are you talking about? Like, why are you still buying clothes? Like, why?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it fossil fuel energy is without it we would all die, like, or like majority, like humanity as it exists right now would implode, absolutely implode, World War III probably.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I know there is obviously a super it's probably hard to go against the grain like you're doing right now. So I applaud that, but I'm really excited because I want to get into this because, like, okay, I think something everyone can relate to is why the hell has gas doubled in the past 2 years? Like, why did we have fairly kind of steady rates? Boom, dips, oil's negative money, everything's just like chaos, pandemic starts. And then all of a sudden now we're just like inflation, boom, boom, rising oil to the point where like places in California are paying $7 a gallon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there's multiple questions in there. I guess we'll go in linearity. Like why was oil negative $37 a barrel at in March of 2020? So like that's something like no one really ever think was possible. But at the end of the day, there's a pretty logical explanation. So there's this place in the United States called Cushing, Oklahoma. If you want to pop up a map in the editing, it's literally just a field full of tanks, like storage tanks, like big circular cylindrical tanks. And in those tanks, they store oil. And what happened in like that period of time in March, there was such a drop in demand for oil, for refined goods, gasoline, stuff like that, that these tanks literally filled to the brim. So there was nowhere to store the oil. So people ended up like the people that were producing the oil, they didn't want to like throw it away because you really can't, right? So they were basically having for a tiny period of time, logically speaking, they were having to pay people to take their oil. So it was kind of just like a logistical thing, like a space constraint. It wasn't really like some like crazy economic thing or anything like that. It was kind of just like, where do we put it if we make more? So yeah, that's the reason
Sure.
why
So how
oil was negative 37.
what percentage of the oil reserves are in Cushing, Oklahoma? Like,
Well, the word for those are not, it's not
not
reserves, it's
reserves
a storage. So reserves are,
in the
it's
ground.
considered an economically viable underground reservoir. So that's how, like, loosely, there's different classifications, and I won't go into that. There's like a bunch of different numbers and letters, and that's that's a reporting thing for publicly traded oil and gas companies. There's really no point in trying to explain that on here. It's very complicated. I really don't
Okay.
understand it entirely myself, but it's like it's storage. I don't know what the capacity is, but I mean, it's in probably tens of millions of barrels, I think.
So
Let's do a quick Google search.
okay. So there's like enough of the storage is within Cushing, Oklahoma to the point where only Cushing, Oklahoma would make us go negative 37? Or did this happen all across the country, all across every nation?
Yeah, so the weird thing about oil markets, and even more so in natural gas markets, is the fact that it's more of a regional thing because you have a good here and it's not as easy. There's no pipelines that go to Europe. It's which is where the other large benchmark is. So the benchmark out of Cushing, Oklahoma is West Texas Intermediate loosely. So that's just it's a grade of crude oil, has its like own properties, its own sulfur content, all the different hydrocarbon components into it. And it's priced separately from other grades. So like you have like Louisiana Light, you have the OPEC basket, you have Brent. Brent is North Sea crude, and there's like there's always like a price differential between every grade because of its different qualities, and there's a local demand sort of aspect to that as well. So right now, I think Brent is about $97, and I think WTI West Texas Intermediate is about 92 to 93 today. So there's like a difference in the quality of the oil. So oil is not all the same. There's a bunch of different measures, and there's different uses for different grades of oil, or there's different best uses for it. So there's a difference there. So it's a lot more regional. But the United States, like a lot of the oil, like if you look at like a pipeline map, which is something I work a lot with, working for the company I work for right now. If you look at Cushing, Oklahoma, with oil, like oil pipelines, it's literally just like a nest. Like a lot of the pipelines go there. So remember Keystone XL? That pipeline was originally supposed to go to, I think, Steel City, Nebraska, which it connected with other pipelines to go down to Cushing, probably. There's a lot of interconnections between pipelines. So there's a lot of interplay between regions. Like you can send oil wherever you want, basically within the United States because of all the pipelines. So just Cushing, it has a 76.6 million barrels of oil storage, and for context, the global demand per day is 100 million barrels currently, and a barrel
Oh
is
my
42
God.
gallons.
Oh my God, bro.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
whenever you
that's
hear any like stories about the government releasing oil from their reserves or whatever, it's it's not really that impactful. They're like, oh, 400,000 barrels. Yeah, you see like Cushing, Oklahoma. If you look
so
it up
this would be probably where Cushing,
somewhere,
Oklahoma.
yes, yep.
Interesting.
Then the other like hot points you see like in West Texas, that's Midland, Odessa. And then the north of that should be about Hobbs, New Mexico.
Interesting.
Yeah, and then there's a lot of stuff in Denver,
A lot of stuff
Gulf Coast.
on
Yep,
the
of
Gulf.
course. There's
Wow.
a lot of refineries down there, and also offshore production. And there's a lot of stuff going to Illinois too, because we have Indiana, because we have a big refinery in Whiting, Indiana. I think the Whiting refinery. I think it's owned by a BP. So yeah, there's a lot of refineries in places you wouldn't necessarily expect them to be.
And so I guess secondly, part of the question was
Oh yeah.
where So we
Why
have
is it
this
so
crash.
expensive?
We have this
Yeah.
crash, and then all of a sudden, I mean, I guess not suddenly, but suddenly in a long-term perspective, in the past 2 years, gas has doubled
Hmm.
at least in a lot of places. Like what has happened in the past 2 years that has kind of just blown it off the map?
Yeah. So basically, in my opinion, what has happened is something called a commodity boom. It's basically when you have unexpected macroeconomic growth and there's lagging supply, right? So I think one of the like classic examples of this is the huge boom that occurred in China, like the early 2000s leading up to 2008. Like no one really expected China to take off as much as it did, and of course, when an economy really industrializes and stuff, there's a huge bump in demand for oil and gas specifically. When I say gas, I mean natural gas. I mean also gasoline, because if you demand the oil, you also demand the gasoline that comes along with refining it. So it's basically no one really thought that we were going to bounce back as fast as we did from COVID. And the fact that oil was negative $37 really disincentivized investment. So you have a situation where no one's really drilling new wells and we're not investing in our production capacity, slash we damaged it when we shut off our production. That's another little nuance, is if you shut in a well, you can actually damage the rock to a point where it cannot recover without intervention. It cannot
Really?
go back to where it was without intervention on your part. Yeah.
So because oil crashed, a bunch of places shut down to the
Mm-hmm.
point where they're damaging the actual goods to the point where it costs ridiculous amounts of money to just get it to
Well,
par.
I mean, a lot of so there's multiple aspects to that. So when you shut in a well is just basically turn off the tap or whatever, like make it so there's nothing coming out. And when you do that, it kind of changes like your pressure, temperature stuff, and there's like contaminants in the oil that when they're subject to that change, they can kind of just clog up, like without explaining, basically just clogs up the well. So when you shut in,
Mm,
you can never fully come back unless you perform some whatever remedial treatments to the well to get it back to the initial production. So that's one of the reasons why. So I I don't necessarily know that the markets or countries were expecting this, because a lot of the OPEC countries, they're talking about how much spare capacity they have, but they've consistently underdelivered on their increases. So there's concern that they
wait,
don't actually have that
explain what that
spare.
is for. What is
Those
the
spare capacity is
okay?
like, so if
Oil
you're operating
pack.
in
Okay, go through it. Oil pack.
uh,
So oil pack
OPEC,
country.
OPEC
OPEC.
is like the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries. So it's
Okay.
like Saudi Arabia, like all your classic examples of
Okay.
Middle Eastern oil, some stuff in Africa. There's a few in South America, but it's basically a cartel. Well, they call themselves a cartel, but it's pretty questionable whether or not they're classically defined as a cartel. But we don't need to get into that.
Okay.
So that's like what they just have a lot of oil, and they
Okay.
kind of coordinate together to try and see what should we produce, stuff like that. So once like demand started recovering, they were like, oh, we should just like ease in like whatever, like make X amount of barrels more a day to like try and like time it right, like not cause a crash or anything like that. Just like ease the economy back onto having more oil. And what's actually happened is that they've underdelivered on those like increases in production that they promised, because I think that they have damaged their reservoirs by having them shut in, or whatever they had done to them during COVID. That's my little conspiracy. I mean, I'm not fully educated on it. I mean, I do have, I guess, 7 out of 8 semesters of a petroleum engineering degree at
If
this
you're
point.
seven
So
eighths, you know what you're talking about.
yeah, I'm 7/8. I'm going to graduate in like 3 months. So yeah, that's what I think about that. So that's one of the reasons I think we've had a sort of lagging in demand or in supply. And another reason I sort of so there's another reason why we're having lagging supply is, well, the fact that we're having sort of there's a lot of opposition in the United States. So like they froze like the drilling leases, like they can't issue any more permits or whatever, and they just like nullified an offshore lease block sale. So like you can lease land to drill on it, then you pay the government royalties on the oil you produce. So the government basically said, "Oh no, we're not leasing any more land to oil and gas." Like Biden executive ordered that. So domestically, we're kind of in a pickle there. So like we're kind of just
So
having to
what
drill
does
on
that
what we
mean
got.
exactly? So we can't, we're not, the United States cannot expand where it's drilling more anymore.
Currently, yes. If it's on federal land, so like BLM land, stuff like that, I think they've pretty
Interesting.
much said no more by executive order. Joe Biden did that. And then you also have just like the sentiment of like the investors. So like oil and gas in the last 5 years has really performed quite poorly from a stock market standpoint. So getting funding is not necessarily the easiest thing for a lot of oil and gas companies from like an ESG standpoint. You know what that is, right? ESG. It's like
I mean,
social
if
like
you
goals
think
and
it's if you think
yeah,
it's I mean, I would imagine most people don't know what it is. So just like try to explain
environmental,
it.
social governance, stuff like that. So it's
Okay.
like there's been a rise in like sort of ESG investing. So like that obviously rules out oil and gas companies from people that are aiming to do ESG. So right now, basically, a lot of the oil and gas companies have not bounced back as quick because they don't have the capital to do so because it's a very capital intensive industry. Like you need millions and billions of dollars to really make a difference. So they don't have the money, and if they do, they're they've earned it from higher oil prices, and they're more inclined to sort of give it back to their current investors to sort of attract more investors. Be like, oh, these guys got big dividends this year because they turned a lot of profits and they weren't like rolling back. It's called I guess you would call it dividend rollback from a financial standpoint or something like that, or rolling back in your profits, right? So a lot of oil companies now are just kind of focusing on like getting big returns again. So like that's something historically that a lot of larger oil companies have been is just consistent high dividend givers, and that hasn't really been the case for quite a while now. So there's been a disincentivation, like there's been a lot of disincentivizing for investors to put money into them. So
Mm.
there's that aspect as well. So I mean, it's getting better. I think it's finally getting to the point where oil price is so high that banks cannot say no anymore because there's too much money to be made. You know, money talks, right? So it's kind of like it's kind of getting to that point now where they're getting the money because the investors they want the money, they want the returns, right? So in a way, it's working. So we're slowly pulling ourselves out, I think. But then I guess the third thing about why oil prices are so high right now is so the market's forward looking, right?
Mhm.
It always like looks to the future, what's going to happen in the future. And you have like the Russian Ukraine thing, right? And
Yes.
Russia is a very large, I think they're the third largest oil producer, third or second. I think it's the United States, Saudi Arabia, and Russia. And Russia supplies obviously a ton of oil and gas to the world. A lot of it goes to Europe. Some of it comes to California. And yeah, when Russia does bad things like invade Ukraine, like what they basically did today, the U.S. government is inclined to impose sanctions. For, like right, like they
Mhm.
imposed some sanctions today, but if they were to like they were to sanction off like Russian oil and gas, like they have done to Iran, which is also sort of another event that's happening right now is the Iranian nuclear deal. So if the United States government or like the world government was to cut off Russian supply, like literally the sky's the limit for oil. Like some people say if that happens, like price could go up to like $200 a barrel, stuff like that. It's literally like a
Jesus,
huge
bro.
chunk of. So if you think $7 gas is bad in California right now, imagine if it was $14 a gallon, right?
Bro. Yeah, so I looked up the list. So it's US, Russia, Saudi Arabia. Top three are far behind beyond everyone else, basically. Good
Yeah.
Lord.
So
So
there's a lot of stuff going on.
yeah, so we kind of got through kind of a little bit of the macro why we could be going up in price in oil. So I think specifically because this is a huge, huge current event, I think we should dive into a little bit of Russia, Ukraine. So
Mm-hmm.
Russia and Ukraine have been building tension, building tension, building tension, and then just even like today, there's just been a like
Hmm.
huge step closer to like this could be a legitimate like war, which many countries get involved in, to the point where, like you said, Russia is gonna like, we could not receive oil from Russia anymore. And then how is that going to change
Yeah,
the
for sure.
oil production?
Yeah. So, I mean, what Russia did today was basically like acknowledge that those two separatist regions or whatever that they've been, I don't know, they like declared independence in like 2014 or something, but it wasn't like legitimately recognized. And then Russia just like, oh yeah, they're independent. They're part of whatever. They say we can come in. And then they just showed up. So they just like kind of took over like two provinces of Ukraine today. They just like moved in or just like, we're here now. Like, what are you guys going to do about it? And like, I guess the whole premise on like kind of, I'm probably not the most educated person. You should talk to John Feely about like the whole
John
history on
Feely.
this, but pretty sure like the whole thing was kind of, it's kind of a scary like thing to say. It's like, oh, like the ethnic Russians in Ukraine are being abused, right? So us as Russia need to come in and protect our people. And that's kind of like going back in history, history repeats itself. That's what the Nazis said about Poland. So it's kind of scary.
100%, dude. There's like so many similarities between the starts of the world wars we've experienced so far. Like, just even coming out of this pandemic, like how much that's, like a little bit like World War One in a way. Like, it's like a similar timeline. There's a lot of political distrust. And then all of a sudden we're slowly coming out of the pandemic. Now I was thinking about like an hour ago, like, what if we just go straight into like a global war again? Because that's, at this point, seems like it could be an outcome, which is terrifying, bro.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't think it's going to turn to a global war. I think it's going to be one of those. Well, Ukraine's not part of NATO, so we don't really have any. I don't think we have any treaty obligation to protect Ukraine if we really don't want to. But I could definitely see proxy war, like where we
Mm,
support the Ukrainian government, and then Russia just gives these separatists, which are basically just Russian troops that they send over the border, but on the low, and then they just give them all the weapons and whatever they need, right? Kind of just fight it out like that. I could see that happening. I don't know if Ukraine is worth going into a world war over at this point. Like, not
sure.
to crap on Ukraine, but
And
like,
that's,
what if they provide? What do they provide to the world economy? Like sunflowers, maybe. Like, they get some good stuff, I guess. But
yeah, no, that is tough because you're devaluing what, tens of millions of people. And,
yeah,
but there is a little bit of like, like France and Germany are trying to flex a little bit and be like, no, Putin, don't do it. Like, but do you think they
yeah.
have are they gonna back that?
I mean, I don't know. Russia has Germany by the balls from an energy standpoint. Like the Nord Stream 2 got shut down today because of what happened. And gas prices in Europe, if you think natural gas is expensive in the US, they're literally like 6 times higher in Europe right now because of supply crunches
Mm,
caused by Russia basically not sending in them enough natural gas. It's There was a point in time where there was I think it was like late last year. They were concerned that it was gonna induce like a small famine because they couldn't produce fertilizer in Europe at an economical rate because the
really?
prices were so high because natural gas is a feedstock for fertilizer. So there was a concern that they would not produce enough fertilizer for the coming like harvest because it was too expensive.
Damn. So
Yeah.
how much is this going to this, war, Russia, Ukraine war? How much is this going to affect the European market?
Well, I mean,
Since you
if I
said
mean
it's very
like
regional, right?
yeah, like the sanctions and stuff. I mean, it's conceivable that natural gas almost becomes unobtainable if they cut off all supply from Russia, which is
Oh my
why
God.
yeah, because there's some production in the Netherlands, and then there's North Sea, and then there's a bunch of stuff they can like ship in, like tanker ship it in. But overall, they haven't. There's been such like a decline in investment in Europe just because of the regulatory that there's really like no onshore like sizable domestic production that I know of in Europe, other than like Russia and those people that aren't really subject to the classical European
Mm-hmm.
politics, So there's a lot of that. And then there's a growing anti-nuclear sentiment in Europe too, except France, because they got all the nuclear technology and they want to sell it to everybody. But yeah, there was a push to make in the EU or the UN, one of the two. I'm not sure. Talk to John Feely, he knows. To make a nuclear and natural gas power generation considered green. And of course, France was like, "Oh yeah, this is great. We need to do this." And then all the other countries were like, "Eh." I think Germany said no, but not everyone needs to agree to it to consider make it work. But
Mm.
it's just kind of a weird thing that they're trying to push now.
Gosh, that it kind of comes back to kind of the supply chain issues we're having right now, where and then in the origins of United States in this country, we made everything here. Everything was made in America. All the cars were made here. Everything was made here. And then all of a sudden, there starts to become an economic viability to have that overseas and especially specifically in Asia and in China. And then pandemic happens, and now we have supply chain issues out the wazoo that is just absolutely just skyrocketing inflation rates, and people are getting like my grandparents have been waiting 9 months to get a couch. Like that's absurd. Like it's just been sitting off the port of LA. And that it's how do we learn from the situation that's going on in Russia and Europe to the point where Russia has all the control? How do we learn from that to bring it back to America?
Yeah. So, well, the big thing here in the United States is there's always been a push for energy independence from an energy standpoint. I don't know necessarily everything about the supply chain issues, but I know about energy markets. So there's all like ever since the oil embargo, and I think it was 72, 73, where Saudi Arabia is basically just like, oh yeah, we're not selling the US any more oil. There's been a consistent push to like make us independent and not rely on any other country for our energy needs. So make everything domestically, maybe Canada makes some of it or something like that. Like people that aren't like on the other side of the world that we disagree with on some level in a massive way, something like that. And I don't know. There's because of the things I mentioned earlier on the production side. I don't know if we're necessarily energy dependent anymore, but we definitely were before the pandemic. I'm pretty sure. And I think I don't know, in recent years, I think 2011 was the first year. There might have been one other time when we were into energy independent, like the 80s or something. But in 2011 until relatively recently, I'm pretty sure we were energy independent overall, except California, because California is jacked up from a regulation standpoint.
So United States was energy independent in 2019 for the first time since
Okay.
1957.
Okay.
So that would make more sense because it was in the last year of Trump, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that was what we were pushing for. I don't know if we're still there. We might be, but
we've probably fallen off since then.
That's
I guess.
Yeah, a little bit. But I think it's very obviously it's something that we can do to protect ourselves from getting like grabbed by the balls, like what Germany is having done to them by Russia. Like that's something you don't want to have happen, where they have so much leverage over your economy, your quality of life, that they can basically do whatever they want, and you just won't be able to do anything about it because they have like the biggest card like of them all. They can just destroy you without like not necessarily firing a single shot, just like shut down the pipelines. Like, oh, screw you guys, we'll take the economic hit. We're still to China or something.
Yeah,
something like that. Like that's just I think that's something that is definitely able to be done here. Just maintain our independence or get it back if we've lost it in the last couple of years.
I mean, and that's what Putin realizes. I think he just realizes that there's going to be almost no repercussion for like most of what he does, because who is going to get into a war with Russia? Like that just sounds like idiocracy. Like no European state has near the the power to battle Russia one on one. And like, then, we're not going to go fuck there. We just got out of Afghanistan. Like, why are we going to do that? And then, but then I guess back to the United States, I think it is kind of scary too, like you were saying earlier, that we are not allowing anywhere else, we're not allowing new oil drilling projects, essentially. So how are we going to even have progress energy independence if we're just kind of slowly tapping out what we already have?
Yeah. So, I mean, prices will just come to a point where the federal government's like, well, our opportunity, because they get paid royalties on those leases. And keep in mind, like, the biggest state when it comes to having issues with federal land leases is New Mexico. It's part of like the whole Permian Basin. There's like the Delaware Basin up there. It's a natural gas, like oil and gas shale play. So it's just like shale rock, and it's
Mm-hmm.
just full of natural gas and oil and stuff like that. So that's where it's the biggest issue. And then also offshore, like they nullified a lease sale like the other week. They're like, oh yeah, we can't do that. Never mind. And then like everyone just got their money back and they're like, oh, that's too bad.
Oh,
You're not getting it. And yeah, I don't know. I think there's going to be a point where like like they're going to have to. They're going to be like prices are too high. We can't build up enough production because we're going to drill out all the acreage we have, and we're not going to be able to sustain. Things are just going to be if people. If prices hit like $100 and they're consistently above $100, people are just going to be like, well, what the hell? What's going on? And like they're just people get mad about how much they're spending. Like you see it on social media and stuff like that. Like people are just mad about how much they're spending. And I'm like, well, wasn't it nice when like before the pandemic when oil was only $60, right?
yeah.
Like it wasn't great for the oil and gas industry, but it was doable. You're maybe spending $30 instead of like 60 or $70 to fill up your tank. So I don't know. There's just gonna have to be some change, or we're gonna have to develop some new technology that we can just get more out of what we already have. But I think, if Biden keeps going the way he's going, I don't think he's gonna win a re-election at this point. So just throwing that out there. I don't think he's gonna. I don't think
Yeah.
it doesn't seem to be going too well for his grand plans or whatever he was thinking in that head.
No,
So
I just honestly, bro, with Biden, I don't know, man. Like, why can't we just have someone that's like not about to die, like
yeah,
as the
exactly. Yeah.
president? Like he's supposed to be like a sign of power, like and like
Hmm.
respect, but like he can barely walk out of a room or close a door or walk upstairs. Like, good
Yeah.
lord.
I don't know. It's I don't necessarily want to go down the rabbit hole of why Biden's incompetent, but
No, but I
hey,
think what we were touching on before is a little bit of like the moral ambiguity of oil. So like, eventually we're going to shift into a renewable energy, right? We're going to have to
yeah.
because it's going to run
Hmm.
out. So how do you dance with that, knowing that in the future your job's not going to exist,
Yeah.
and
I
who
mean,
knows how soon that future is?
yeah, that's something I've obviously thought about a lot. So basically, like I'm pretty much unconvinced that the transition is going to happen as quickly as people think because, well, the oil and gas industry is so powerful. And the fact that we don't have the technology to like sort of replace, because we don't have, like, there's no, like, yeah, we can do batteries and stuff, but they've tried to employ that recently. It's not like worked out well. Like everything's just set on fire basically and kind of went up in
Wait, what do you
flames
mean by that?
literally. So I think there was like I don't know, some Tesla thing. They like built a big battery farm to like store renewable energy. Like a bunch of their batteries burned up, I think. You might be able to look this up. I don't know if it was Tesla, but I think it was some giga something. Sounds like Tesla.
Tesla farm what did?
It's like a battery farm. I don't know.
Oh, blaze at giant Tesla battery farm.
It took firefighters 4 days to put it out, according to the Independent. 150 firefighters and 30 fire trucks, 4 days.
So
Yeah, so that's like what the current solution is. Like there's other solutions, but they're not as easily employable everywhere, if you get what I'm saying. Like they don't work in every location. So like there's a bunch of different solutions they've kind of thought of, like pumping water, using the excess energy to pump water up into like a tank and then flow it out to get the energy back. And there's like other things I'm not necessarily so sure about, but I know that there's not like one good solution for like every area, if you get what I'm saying. Because a lot of
sure.
renewable stuff, it doesn't work like all the time. And that's an issue, right? If you can't store the energy reliably but efficiently, then it doesn't work. And I just don't see like these huge like advancements coming. Maybe it'll come like sooner than I think. Maybe I'll be screwed, but I don't think they're gonna come as quickly. Like we thought we were gonna have flying cars like way a long time ago, right? We don't have flying cars yet. I
Yeah.
don't know if it's that out as outlandish as that, but I don't know. I just feel like it's like a weird some other engineer will figure that out, push me out of a job, and then that's why I have a master's degree, so I can just do something else, right? I don't have to be in the
Yeah.
oil and gas industry. I go work in the
Yeah.
mining industry. That's going to be booming if all this takes off, right?
Yeah. Yeah. We got to supply it somehow. But yeah, I guess flying cars are kind of interesting because it's like people always talk about that, but like we have the technology for that. It's just like the practicality of having someone take a helicopter off in their driveway is just like never going to be
Yeah,
a thing,
driving
right?
on the roads is bad enough. I don't know if I want to be like 1,000 feet in the air
Three-dimensional.
with like a bunch of drunk people or something like that.
Yeah, bro. Could you imagine? Like, how are you gonna govern that shit, man?
They're gonna have to make it like Europe is for normal driving. Like you have to like go to school for like over a year and like do all these crazy tests to get a license,
Yeah.
right?
No, my girlfriend, her mother grew up in Germany until she was like 19. So she did, driving school out there. And so first of all, like, you have to be 18. You're 18 to drive, 16 to drink in Germany, which is funny,
Mm-hmm.
compared to like how different it is here. But she said driving school was 2 years, 2 years.
So,
And she said on like one of the last days of her in driving school, like she was out on the road, like just going around. It was like raining. It was kind of like a nasty day out. And her driving instructor's like, yeah, so this is your final day. So what I'm gonna do is I know it's raining out. I'm going to yank the wheel as hard as I can, and you need to make sure we don't die. And so then he's like, okay. And she's like, holy shit. And she has to like recorrect it. Like, could you imagine that compared to like an American
that's
driver?
yeah,
Not even
dude.
close.
I don't think I ever finished my practice hours before I was allowed to get a license. I kind of just wrote some stuff in there.
Yeah. Like there's
Parents signed
no, you
off, and
can
you're
do
just like, oh, there
anything.
you go.
It is
Yeah, it's
crazy that we give the moral responsibility to a 16-year-old to like drive. That's
yeah. I
always
have
been
a
like,
I have a I have a friend that spent 3 years in his high school in Germany, like driving and stuff, because he had like it's like a military thing.
mm-hmm.
And he was able to drive. That's after he turned 18, just because he had a U.S. driver's license. Like they gave him a military one, and he's like, "Oh yeah, it's so nice driving over there. Like no one passes you on the right. Like everyone moves over when there's an ambulance, but keeps driving. Like everyone's so nice and like courteous, basically. Like everyone just knows the rules and they just follow them, and it just works so much better." And I was just like, well, I mean, you have a bunch of 16-year-olds and
Yeah.
people that spent like a week in driver's ed like 30 years ago, and then just kind of do it how they want now. It's kind of what happens, right? So
No.
I'm kind of pro like just making the requirements higher. Like there's more burden of proof to like prove that you're competent. Because like the driving test is a joke. Like I don't think I even had to go on the highway or anything like that.
No, you don't. You just have to
They
like
kind of
drive
just drove us
around.
around the neighborhood and just like, oh, you passed. You didn't do
You
anything.
didn't hit a grandma.
Yeah, I was like, oh, great, okay, sweet.
It's awesome. Let's
So
go.
I don't know. I'm for like increasing the expectations if we're then granted more freedom in driving. Like maybe there's the express lanes don't have a speed limit per se.
Yeah.
Like that would be pretty fun. Like if you're competent enough, then you should be able to go as fast as you want. Then as long as you think it's safe, then you should be able to do it.
Yeah,
But
that's what it is in Germany, right? With Autobahn. It's
yeah,
like
there's some areas that you can.
a lot
There's
of
no
areas
speed
where you
limit.
can just go wherever you want.
Mhm.
But I think it's super contradictory to so I had spent a little bit of time in Peru and specifically in the capital of Peru. And
Mhm.
good Lord, bro, like there is no driving law. Like I don't like people just like I don't think there is driving school or something. It is absolute madness. Like I mean, there's stoplights and there's street signs, but people don't actually use them. Like if there's a
Yeah.
stop sign, people just go through and it's like not even a thing. Or
Oh yeah.
or like everyone, and here's the crazy part is everyone's driving 15 miles an hour because every single car is trying to do the thing where there's parked cars here and there's an opening and they try to cut the gap and cut in front of the next guy and cut in front of the next guy and all these taxi cabs are just like and it makes everyone go slower where you see in like Germany like oh you could drive 120 miles an hour if we just like all agreed on one system, right?
Yeah,
And
of
it'd be
course.
so much less dangerous.
Yeah, it's almost like those videos of like Indian driver like in a big city. There's just like it's just like a mass, and then there's just a random guy walking across the crosswalk that's like not giving any shits at all, just like just
Yeah,
going,
that's
and
how you
then
have to
somehow he
do it,
doesn't get
bro.
hit.
That's
So
how
it's
you
like,
have to
oh
do it.
yeah, you
Like
just like kind of make your own way.
I was literally in the capital, like downtown the capital, and like you have to cross an 8-lane road, and you just have to start walking. That's like how like they decided is how you cross the road is you just start walking, and then you have to like
Yeah,
dodge cars. You play Frogger across the whole highway system. It's crazy. It's crazy,
I mean,
bro.
in some places in the United States, if like they actually obey the yield signs, like yield for pedestrians, they'll actually just stop. You know, no one did that in Illinois, I swear. Like everyone just kind of went most of the, like at least 75% of the time.
Yeah.
Like if you're in like I think the north, I don't know where experience is, but I think in the Northeast, like you like set one foot close to like the street, and then everyone just kind of stops.
In
It's kind of
Oregon,
weird.
it's like that too, bro. That blew
Yeah.
my mind because I was at school out there, and like like those buttons you push and then the lights go blink 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 pedestrians there,
Mhm.
like tap it, every single car on the road stops. I'm like, what the hell, this is so weird because like we have those here. No
But
one
I
has
don't.
ever
I swear those things
stopped.
don't work.
No one has ever stopped, bro. But like you
No.
stop there, every car on the road stops and I'm just like, hey, what's up guys, let's go. Like I just get across. But
Mm.
what was funny is also those people out there, they don't know how to cross a road like a Chicagoan or whatever, like a city folk. Like
Uh huh.
they'll just wait until it gives them the white walkie guy to go
Uh huh.
across the road, even if there's no cars, and it pisses me off so much. It's like just
Oh
think a
yeah.
little bit. Like, why are you not just walking?
Yeah. I was in Houston the other week with a bunch of people. I was the only one that was just like, oh yeah, guys, it's a one-way street, and I'm pretty sure it's clear, but it still says don't walk. Let's just walk because we have like 1,000 other streets to cross wherever we're going. And it's like they're like, oh no, we should wait. I'm just like, where are you from?
Yeah,
Guess
dude,
not
pissed
from a
me
city.
off. It's like just think, guys, just think a little bit. Like just cross the fucking road if there's no cars.
Yeah, I mean it's gonna take you twice as long if you wait for it because I swear those buttons don't even work in half the cities. They just kind of make you wait for the traffic signal to turn normally, basically.
And then that's literally what I think it is. It just waits and then it'll give you a white walkie guy
Hmm.
if you push the button. If because I've had people not push the button, then just wait there and they never get a white walkie guy and they'll wait like 3 cycles and be like, why is this taking so long? I'm like, because you
Yeah,
didn't push the thing. Like it's clear to
yeah,
go if it's a red light.
yeah. I think the system needs a little bit of improving,
How would
to
you
say the
improve it?
least. Well, make it actually work. Like it always like at least make the whatever cycle it is. If it's safe to walk, make it just turn like you can walk like whenever it's safe. You know, I feel
Mm,
like in some I've seen that some places like when no one's pressed it, it switches automatically. But I don't think it's that common. It's kind of
interesting.
I don't know. It's a weird thing. There's definitely something up with those things. It's like those close buttons on the elevator. You know, like those things don't work
They're
except when
always
you
so
find one.
delayed
Yeah,
too.
yeah, because they don't work. It's just like the normal timing. I think. Like I think legally for like ADA, like Americans with Disabilities Act, some of those things have to be like the elevator can't be closed before a certain time to allow for
Mm,
handicapped people to get in. I think.
even if you're like, I don't want the handicapped person in, you know?
Yeah, I don't know. That's what I read somewhere. I don't know if that's true, but I feel like those things don't work. Sometimes like they're just disconnected totally because they don't want you to even waste your time pressing the button.
Um, so with the spike of the oil prices, so I mean, obviously the oil industry benefits when oil's higher, right? So like in this in the situation that we're currently in, is oil kind of like licking their chops here? Like they're like, oh guys, we are gonna
Oh yeah.
cash cow right now.
I have a story for you. No, I was saying I was in Houston the
Yeah.
other week. That was for an oil and gas conference, and it's for like the sale of like private land for drilling and stuff. And there's
Hmm.
just a ton of high rollers there. And after at the end of every day, there was just like hundreds of all you could drink parties, all you can eat parties for free. Not like hundreds, but like dozens of them throughout Houston. That as long as you like just got like you just like found it, you just showed up and like you just get whatever you wanted. Someone else would pick up
Jesus.
the tab. Yeah. So it was pretty crazy. Like Grey Goose was like the well vodka over there. Like you were getting there was one place I went to where we were eating like crab and stuff.
Oh
Just like
my
all you could eat
God.
crab. Like whatever you wanted, just like go grab it. Yeah.
And
That's how good it is.
so why are they just willing to like be exuberant like that?
Well, that's like the conference is known for being like that. It's kind of just like a tradition.
Mm.
It's I don't know. It's always extra, but I've only been one time, so I can't like say how bad it was like 2018 or something. Like I'm sure it wasn't that great, but it was very good. The food was very good. We were eating like it was like all you could eat tri-tip steak one place too. I
God.
feel like I gained 10 pounds in the 3 days I was there. Yeah, it was. That's what we're looking at. And like yeah,
And so like, would you recommend people go into this field for like is this the time to go into oil?
I mean not this time because you think about it, you get into school and it takes you 4 years.
Sure.
Or like maybe if you don't do that route, you do something else. I mean, you have to be a special kind of person to like go want to work in the oil patch. I feel like you can't. You have to be like pretty rough and tumbled. You can't just be like some random city person that doesn't get how it is out there because it's a different world. It's like very like it's what you would think from an oil field. It's like most of the people you're working with, if they're not engineers, they're probably barely graduated high school and they don't really care. They just want that big paycheck. There's a significant portion of them that probably didn't graduate high school and have just been working in the oil field for the last 30 years. They're just
Mm.
like they're out there on like the rig floor smoking cigarettes when there's like natural gas coming out the hole. Just
Good
like
Lord.
whatever. Yeah, I heard there's a story someone told me. It's like they were having a you know what a blowout is? It's like where you have like gas and oil shooting out of the hole, basically. It's like what
Oh,
happened with
okay.
BP. It's like they were having one of those, not like super big. And apparently, so like there's a way you can divert the natural gas away so it doesn't blow up and like burn it off somewhere else. And apparently the light on it's called a flare line, had gone out and the guy was he like flicked a lit cigarette and it landed in one of the one of the drilling mud tanks, which is just like a lubricant, like whatever stuff for the actually drilling. And it was oil based mud, and it literally burned down the entire rig. Like the thing like literally melted.
What?
Yeah,
Oh my
something
God.
happened there.
Just a
Yeah,
hard ass motherfucker. Can't get it.
yeah, that's what they do. They don't really think too much. That's what I think. I mean, some of them are very smart and like they're educated and stuff, but they're kind of just like it's like rednecks out there doing that stuff basically. That's how I see it. So it's kind of you have to kind of be in the same class. You can't have like I don't know, no offense to computer science people, but you can't have like spent your entire college career, or like most of your life sitting in a basement on a computer and then fit in the oil field. So I don't know.
Mm.
You have to kind of be a special kind of person. You kind of have to have like a passion for it to like
Yeah.
have a shot of like
S-
fitting in and like feeling like it's something you want to keep doing. Right.
Yeah. So what is your particular role within the oil industry?
So petroleum engineers basically so there's sub disciplines. There's drilling, there's completions, there's production, and there's reservoir. Those are like the normal big four. So like drilling is like actually drilling the well.
Hmm.
And then completions is like getting that drilled well to a point where it can go to production, like it can start producing. Because there's things you have to do to it to make sure that the hole doesn't like collapse basically. And that you kind of have everything isolated. So you don't have like oil seeping into like fresh water, like rock, right? Like an aquifer, stuff like that. So you need to case the hole with like a steel like tube basically. and then you need to put cement behind the tube. So it's kind of like it's a process that completions, and then you have to put holes inside the steel tube. So you have to like use explosives to blow holes into the tube because obviously oil can't go through steel. So that's part of the completions process. And then you might frack the well, like basically just like force fluid into the rock and then crack it, which is something that is highly contested nowadays. But then there's like the production role, which is like once we have the well, it's producing oil. Like how do we optimize what it's doing, stuff like that. Then the reservoir is like the huge picture, like what does the entire like subsurface system look like? Like what do we need to do? What's going to work best to like get the most oil out, stuff like that. So like those are the big disciplines. And I will be working in either drilling or completions. I haven't been assigned as of yet. So after the summer, if they want me back, they'll put me on something else.
So are you going into an internship right now or?
Yeah, because I'm graduating in December.
Oh, okay, got you.
Yeah, so hopefully they want me back for full time.
Are you getting paid
gotta
for
do
an
my
internship?
work. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, they pay in the oil industry.
Oh yeah, they do.
Isn't, if I remember this right, something in completions is what malfunctioned during the BP thing that
Yeah.
do you know that story very well?
Not like super well, but I know that they didn't follow the right pressure testing procedures, I'm pretty sure. And then they tried to go back and fix it, and like just something just went horribly wrong, and they were in a situation where they could control it, is what I understand.
Gotcha.
I haven't read, even though I should. I kind of feel bad, but I mean, offshore stuff, it's not really
Not
that
really your
interesting to
thing.
me. No.
Interesting. So you're more in the onshore stuff.
Yeah, West Texas is where
West
I live.
Texas. So why, you were kind of explaining this a little bit off pod, but why is there just like this hub in West Texas that you're moving into from Colorado? Like, why are you moving away from Colorado?
Yeah, so I mean, Colorado has a lot of oil and gas too, but it's not as prolific, and most of that is due to regulatory burdens that have been levied on the industry over the last few years, mostly. I mean, there are jobs here, but it's just not the most happening place when it comes to oil and gas. Like there are a lot of jobs here. I don't know. I think we might be like we're top 5 oil producing states. So there's a lot of stuff here, but I don't know. Colorado's just not. I don't think it's for me at this point. It's just not. I don't know. The culture has shifted. I feel like it's kind of. I don't know. It's not. I don't like the politics very much. And I just like West Texas better. It's a much smaller town. There's like way less people there. It's wide open spaces. It's free. It's the free country down there, man.
Oh
They
yeah.
never had any. They never had mask mandates. They didn't have any snow
Yeah.
vaccine mandates down there. No one cares, man. It never happened for them besides
Yeah.
the oil industry dipping a little bit. No one was when I was down there for a little bit over the summer. It was like I came from Colorado, which was all locked down and stuff, and I was just like, oh, we're in freedom right now. Like we can do whatever we
Yeah.
want. No one's gonna tell us like, oh, you can't have this many people in your house. That's breaking the law. Or like, oh, you need a mask to go to the grocery store, something like that. It's like
Yeah.
I don't
No,
know.
that
They
stuff's
didn't.
crazy, bro. Because I definitely I going back for Christmas, I drove from Arizona through New Mexico, through Texas, Louisiana, all the way up to Illinois. And like literally COVID didn't exist until I got into Chicagoland. Like it just didn't. Like
Mhm.
no one talked about it. No one, it was just like everyone just living life, doing whatever. And then like you get to Chicagoland and you go to a gas station, you're like, where's your mask? And I'm like, what, how, what country? What, how did we?
Yeah, exactly. I had the same shock. So like Colorado has like gone in and out of having mask mandates. I
Uh-huh.
think they didn't institute another one until Omicron came out. So, and we recently, like just the other week, we got rid of it. I think hopefully once and for all.
Yeah.
But I came back for I think it was Thanksgiving or something, and like I like landed and like whatever went home, and then my parents were like, "Oh, you're gonna go to the grocery store. You want to come?" I'm like, "Oh, I have nothing else to do." So like, yeah. And I was like, I forgot, like didn't have a mask. And I was like, wait, we need a mask to go to the grocery store here. I was like, why? Like, are we really that packed closely to other people that this is going to make a difference? But wow,
Yeah.
I don't know. I just kind of fall in line when it comes to that stuff. But
Yeah.
having to wear masks in airports, I hate it so much.
It's
I
gross.
swear, I might get banned from United Airlines.
No, wait, what?
No, I mean, like, I don't like it, but I comply.
Okay.
I normally
Okay.
get yelled at least one time on a flight for not having my mask on right, but
Dude,
I mean,
'cause
I hate it.
I was just on a flight like 2 days ago or something, and then this one guy like was very particular about making sure my mask was over my nose properly. And like he
Hmm.
asked me like 2 or 3 times. And I was like, I was just like, man, like if it's over my nose, I can't breathe. Like, and then it's
Hmm.
like, oh shit, because reason I keep it right here is so I can breathe out of my nose like a normal like human would do.
Hmm.
And then just like, no, you gotta have it over your nose. And I'm like, fuck off, fuck off,
Yeah,
fuck off.
I'm gonna love the day when they say you don't have to wear masks in there. I feel like that's like the only place you have to wear a mask in like the state of Colorado right now. Is like hospitals and like airports.
Universities.
I mean, I have to wear one in the classroom, I guess,
Yeah.
but we've laxed up quite a bit on that here at Mines.
Yeah. Illinois.
A lot of their teachers are just like, well, whatever. They don't wear them when they teach, and we're just like, well, all right.
Yeah. That's
They
we're
don't have to wear them when they teach them. Like, well, I guess COVID doesn't exist when you're at the front of the room. Like, you're not that far away from me. Like, I'm sure some
yeah.
particles are going to get over here. And I mean, I'm not worried about COVID anymore. I already had Omicron over Christmas, and I was triple vaccinated. So,
Really. So what the
yeah.
hell is that, man? That's what always is just so confusing.
Well,
It's
it's not
like
a vaccine, man. I swear. I thought with the vaccine you couldn't get it. So I was
that's what
like,
they taught us, man.
I got one dose, and I like went to New Orleans like for a couple days, and kind of just like went to Bourbon Street and just like wandered around when there's just like crowds of people with no mask on. I didn't get it, and I was like, damn, maybe I'm invincible now. And then I got the second dose because I was like, whatever. And it was the side effects were horrible. I was like sick for like 2 days, and then I like didn't want to get a third one. My parents were like, you should just get it, so I just got it, and then I had COVID. I mean, I did have COVID when I got the third vaccine, which might be why it was terrible as well. But
So you got COVID at the same time you got the vaccine?
well, I had COVID before, and I just kind of wanted to get it over with, like the whole thing. I had
Just put
COVID
it all
with,
at once.
yeah. So I just did that. I
Good.
swear, there's no way I'm going to get another Rona variant at this point.
There's no way.
I have all the juice in my body, and I definitely don't want to get another vaccine.
Yeah, bro. They're already like
They're talking about number 4, and I was
yeah.
like, in the fall, I'm like, no, like no,
No. What?
like why? I mean, the only way I do it is if I like had to like leave the country or something,
Yeah.
or if my employer was like, you need to do it. But there's no way my
No
employer is gonna.
way, bro. There's no
Not in
way.
West Texas.
No way, bro.
Yeah, I think some of the big oil and gas companies try to do that, and then they realized that like no one was gonna do it, and they would have to like fire everybody, and they're just like, oh wait, never mind. That's what my
It's the
friend
power
said.
of the people right there a little bit.
ConocoPhillips, yeah. They're just like, nah. What were they gonna do? Fire half their workforce?
Who's gonna come in?
I don't know. I'll take
It's
a
gonna
job at
come in all the hippies that
ConocoPhillips.
got vaccinated, go work in big oil.
Hmm. I don't know,
Jeez,
man.
man.
It's crazy. It's hopefully it's gone away for good, but I have a feeling it's not.
Sure, man.
It might just pop back up again.
Just pop it. It just can't. We can't. We love it, dude. That's what I think. We just love. We
I
love.
think yeah, there's definitely people that are like addicted to being told what to do. And they just think that the government, if you follow the rules or whatever, you just won't get COVID and it'll just go away. And if everyone would just follow the rules, it would just go away. And like,
Oh
well,
my
that's
god,
not really how
it's
these
huge.
things work. Like the government's not God. They can't just like gone COVID. It's just gone. Like everyone's paid their dues. They've prayed to the COVID gods and it's gone. I'm just like, nah.
Yeah.
I mean, no one can claim credit for curing COVID. I mean, the vaccines they were effective. I will admit that to some extent, like against the original couple variants. And I mean, the only reason COVID's like basically gone now is because literally everyone got sick, which is
Yeah.
what everyone was saying from the start. Is like, well, we should just like let everyone do whatever they wanted. If
And get
they
sick.
get sick, they'll probably won't die. But if you're really old, then maybe you should kind of isolate. You know,
Yeah.
that's what like Sweden did. Like
Yeah.
they just let everyone go on and just like
Same with Denmark. Dude, Europe's opening, man. Like
Mhm.
Europe's like, yeah, COVID's over, man.
Oh yeah,
Crazy. Like I think
hype
that
for
like
that.
Denmark's been open for like weeks at this point. Like just
No,
literally zero COVID restrictions, which is
I think
wild.
the UK like removed all their restrictions like the other
Jesus.
day, right?
I think it
But it's like,
was
yeah, whatever.
this week is when they're doing it. Yeah.
hmm But Canada, bro, I don't know what they're doing up there.
Or in it's like Australia,
Australia, yeah,
New Zealand. Like,
yeah.
good
No one knows
lord.
what's going on down there. It sounds terrible. That's all
Sounds
I'm gonna say.
horrible. Like, are you gonna be in lockdown for like a half a decade? Like, what the
They should have like just purposely infected some of their population. Just be like, stay away from your grandparents. Like, let's just get this over with.
especially with Omicron, dude, because Omicron is such little risk that it's like Omicron is what we needed, like in a way,
Yeah,
right?
dude, they gave us what we needed. Natural immunity. That's better than vaccine immunity, in my humble
Hundred
opinion.
percent. I mean,
I mean,
that's how I compare it is like the like natural immunity is just always going to be better than what we can make in a lab, right?
yeah, of
Like
course.
okay, would you rather have a real arm or a prosthetic arm?
hmm
You would rather have a
Yeah.
real arm.
I mean, it's different if it was like Ebola or something. Like, definitely don't want to like let that go
Oh,
through. So
it's
people get
deadly
immune.
and could like just kill everyone. Yeah, that sounds horrible.
Yeah, but
Especially,
if like
yeah,
the death rates from COVID for like healthy people in our age group are like basically zero, I feel like.
yeah,
But then the media is just like, well, everyone's gonna die. Like, look at
yeah,
this 18-year-old that was healthy and got COVID and died. I'm like, well, okay, that's like one person in the entire country.
yeah.
I
But
don't.
they
I'm
love
probably
those
not
stories,
gonna.
bro.
Yeah,
They
it's not gonna
love
happen to
them.
me. I got COVID. I
I'm
I was
chilling.
fine.
No,
It
but
sucked for a little bit, but it was just like a cold.
yeah,
You
like
ever get the Rona?
did I?
Yeah.
I did have. I had the Rona not this January, but the January 2021, and it was like it was rough. I got it for like 4 days. It was like bad.
Mhm.
Um, but I made it out. I was fine. Like I think what was a part of it is I had just like gone on like a 10,000 mile road trip. So I was very unhealthy, not sleeping a lot, eating gas station food, like
Oh yeah.
just like traveling in a different spot every day. Like it was just and just tiresome on my body. And then it just makes sense that, and it was midwinter too. So it was the coldest, snowiest, grossest time of the year, just like the
Mhm.
time to get sick generally. So it hit harder than it would normally. But I don't
Yeah,
know,
you survived. I don't know anyone
made it through.
that's died from COVID that's our age.
Yeah. Well, because the
I feel like
average age of death is so old, man.
yeah, it's like in the late 60s, something like that, right?
I know I'm not sure what it is in America, but I know in the UK it's like 84, which is like older than the average age
Yeah, I
of a
mean, if
person.
anyone dies at age 84, it's not like their life was cut short. To be honest, like you can die of something probably in the near distant future, right?
Yeah. Which
I
is
mean,
super lucky that we had a disease like can you imagine if we had a global pandemic of like Ebola, right? Like
yeah,
good lord, I would be terrified, right?
yeah, I'd actually be scared. But then there's people who are that scared about COVID too. I'm just like, dog, like, why are you wearing a mask alone in your car? Like, like if you want to do that, it makes you feel better. Like, oh, more power to you. But like, you kind of look a little weird. You're like alone in your car with the mask on.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's my
Um
2 cents on that.
yeah. Did you have anything else you wanted to talk about within the oil industry?
I don't know. It's kind of maybe in a year I'll have a lot more to talk
More
about.
than a year, you'll have a lot more once you're
I'll
in
have
it.
some great stories by then. Once I have a summer under my belt, I'm just excited to see what the future has in store. You know?
That's awesome, man. Well, I guess if not, then it's been great talking to you, man.
hmm
Um,
Oh yeah.
it's been a
You
fun little
should reach
call.
out to John Feely.
I'll reach out to John Feely,
He
man.
said he wants to talk about international stuff or whatever he talks about.
He wanted to come on, is what he said.
Yeah.
Oh, he hasn't reached out to me. What the heck, John?
Yeah. Well, it's John, bro.
Big John.
He, is John gonna reach out to anybody? Like I hardly hear from him anyway. I just like,
Yeah.
oh, put
Okay,
it in
I'll
my
talk
group
to
chat.
John. I'd love to talk to John. Maybe I'll hit him up
You have
after this
John's
podcast.
number, right?
I do
Maybe.
not. You can swing it my way after we
Oh
get
yeah,
off here.
I'll
But
send it to you.
yeah, thank you for coming on, man. It's been a
Yep.
pleasure. Okay.
Thanks for having me on.